the silence is the first thing that's wrong. Inside the Imperial Harem of Topkapi Palace, the air usually hums with whispers, with laughter, with the rustle of silk against marble. But tonight, nothing. The tiled walls gleam cold under lamplight filtering through lattice screens, and the servants who move through the corridors won't lift their eyes. Somewhere beyond these guarded doors, the most powerful empire on earth is shaking. Shehzade Mustafa, the Sultan's eldest son, beloved by the army, adored by the people, is dead, strangled by a bowstring inside his own father's military tent. And in the grief, fear, and rumor surging through this palace, one name is being repeated like a curse: Hürrem. She sits in her private chamber now. The imperial jewels at her throat catch the light. Her silk garments, markers of a status no woman like her was ever supposed to hold, feel heavier tonight. She is the most powerful woman in the Ottoman Empire. She is also, at this very moment, the most hated. And the question the entire empire is asking is this: did she do it? Did a former slave girl engineer the death of a prince to put her own sons on the throne, as many alleged though never proved? The answer is more complicated than anyone wants it to be. To understand how a woman ended up at the center of an imperial crisis, you have to rewind far from the golden domes of Constantinople to a small town in Ruthenia on the eastern edge of Europe. Her name is uncertain, though she was likely of Ruthenian origin. She was young, probably no older than 15, when the Tatar raiders came. They burned through her village the way storms move through wheat, fast, indiscriminate, total. She was captured, torn from everything she knew, and fed into the vast machinery of the Ottoman slave trade, transported across hundreds of miles, sold, delivered eventually through the gates of the Imperial Harem. This is where most stories like hers would end. A girl with no name, no family, no protector, absorbed into the walls of a palace designed to be both paradise and prison. Hundreds of women lived behind those lattice screens. Most were never noticed. Most never spoke to the Sultan at all. Hürrem was not most women. She was sharp, disarmingly witty. She had a quality that the other concubines didn't, an emotional intelligence that could read a room the way a general reads a battlefield. She didn't just attract Suleiman's attention, she held it. And in a world where attention from the Sultan was the only currency that mattered, she became richer than anyone expected. They gave her a new name, Hürrem, the cheerful one. It was almost a joke, because what Hürrem was about to do to the Ottoman court was anything but light. She broke the first rule quickly. In the Imperial Harem, a concubine bore the Sultan one son, then stepped aside. One mother, one prince, that was the system, designed to prevent exactly the kind of factional warfare that had destroyed other dynasties. Hürrem gave Suleiman not one son, but several. Each birth was a small earthquake. Each child shifted the political landscape. Then she broke the rule no one thought could be broken. She convinced Suleiman to marry her, legally, formally. A reigning Ottoman sultan had never married a concubine. The ceremony was quiet, almost secret, but its shockwaves were deafening. Overnight, the enslaved girl from Ruthenia became Hürrem Sultan, legal wife of the most powerful man in the world. The court didn't applaud. The court watched. And the person watching most carefully was Mahidevran Sultan Suleiman's other consort, mother of Prince Mustafa, and the woman whose son had just been pushed one step further from the throne. The rivalry between Hürrem and Mahidevran wasn't subtle. Some sources describe a physical altercation, scratches, pulled hair, a confrontation raw enough to reach the Sultan's ears. This was not a disagreement between women. This was a war over which bloodline would rule an empire. Hürrem didn't just fight this war in the harem. She expanded the battlefield. She began writing letters, not love notes, but diplomatic correspondence, sealed with imperial authority, sent to foreign rulers. She formed an alliance with Rustam Pasha, one of the most cunning political operators in the empire, who became her son-in-law and, eventually, Grand Vizier. She built mosques, public baths, soup kitchens, charitable foundations that stamped her name across the empire's landscape in stone and mortar, constructing a public image that could withstand the interpretations gathering around her in private. Because whatever was truly said behind palace doors, the perception hardened. To the old guard, to the Janissaries, to the traditionalists who saw the Ottoman system as sacred, Hürrem looked like an outsider rewriting the rules. And the more power she gathered, the more that image grew. Then came Mustafa. Prince Mustafa was everything the empire wanted in an heir. Charismatic, militarily gifted, adored by the Janissaries, the elite soldiers, whose loyalty could make or unmake sultans. He was also not Hürrem's son. This was the collision point. As Mustafa's star rose, Hürrem's sons faced an ancient and brutal reality. In Ottoman succession, when one prince claimed the throne, his brothers often didn't survive the transition. Hürrem wasn't just playing politics. She was, from her perspective, fighting for her children's lives. What happened next unfolded like a chess game played at knife point. Reports reached Suleiman, allegedly channeled through Rustam Pasha, that Mustafa was growing too powerful, too popular, that the army's love for him was becoming a threat to the Sultan himself. Whether these reports were manufactured, exaggerated, or simply true has been debated for 5 centuries. What is not debated is the result. During a military campaign in 1553, Suleiman summoned Mustafa to his tent. The prince entered. Inside, mute executioners waited with a silk bowstring. There was a struggle, accounts say. Mustafa fought, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Sultan's eldest son was strangled in his father's presence. The empire convulsed. Janissaries wept openly. In the streets, poets composed elegies that barely disguised their accusations. The grief was public, visceral, and it found a target. Not Suleiman to blame the Sultan directly was death, but Hürrem? Hürrem was widely alleged to be behind it, though it was never proven. But something had shifted. The trust the empire placed in its sultan's judgment now carried a hairline fracture. And Hürrem's name, once associated with charm and wit, now carried a darker resonance, the woman many believed had whispered a prince to death. She spent her remaining years continuing to shape the succession, ensuring that her surviving son Selim was positioned for the throne. She built more foundations. She wrote more letters. She moved through the palace with the same intelligence that had carried her from a slave market to a throne room. In 1558, Hürrem Sultan died. She went before Suleiman, before the full consequences of the succession she had engineered played out. Selim II did eventually become Sultan, which means, by the coldest measure, her long game worked. And maybe that's why her story still feels so modern, because beyond the scandal and the accusation, it leaves behind 3 leadership lessons. Influence can overcome origins. Where you start does not limit how far you can rise. Power requires perception. Management, how others see you, can be as important as what you do. Long-term strategy beats short-term wins. Shaping the future often requires patience and calculated moves. If this story moved you, leave a comment. Who do you think Hürrem really was? And subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. We'll see you there.